Hey, so check this out. Today we're going to be showing you how we body work and prepare our motorcycles for paint. I know everybody does it differently. Not saying this is a how-to video, it's more like a how we do it video. We're just going to prepare the metal, prepare the fiberglass, and get everything ready in primer, ready for paint. These parts here are actually from Rick's Motorcycles out of Germany. And I will tell you what, their kit is a pretty cool kit. This rear fender is extremely beefy and hardcore. I mean, it's one heck of a tail section. Some of the parts that we have, factory parts, are powder coated. So we're gonna strip these things down because we want them all in real steel. And the gel coat parts or the fiberglass parts, you don't want to strip these down to, or you don't want to go through the gel coat. If you do go through the gel coat, then you're inviting a lot of pinholes and different things. So we're gonna sand this down. One thing to note is whenever you sand stuff down, you want to sand it till there's no shine. A lot of people will actually not sand inside the little cracks and the nooks. Those are the parts that you really want to take your time and make sure there is no shininess there. So we're going to go through, strip all these things down. I'm going to sand these down and prepare them for epoxy primer. So I went through, sanded all these down, body filed them to take out a lot of the machining tool marks that they did when they manufactured these things. Before I primer these, I actually wanted to show you, check, so you look at this stuff, right? I'm all about American made, right? But you look at what they do in Germany for these little parts. What I'm thinking is, in America, we got to step up our game, because if we want to actually compete with these guys, we get all these parts from different companies that are made in America, and they'll just be raw cut fiberglass edges. They're not symmetrical, they're not nice. I mean, these things are just high quality, really nice parts. And I tell you, anybody who complains about the price of these parts is crazy. Every part that we get from Rick's or from Thunder Cycles out of Germany, it's way better quality. Their lead work is amazing. I mean, who in America even does lead work? Like, everything we've been doing is like mass produced. Like, I think we're trying to compete with having these like Chinese built products, when really we should be building higher end stuff like these guys are. I have nothing bad to say about their products. Their front fender, when I picked it up, well, I picked up a lot of the front fenders, but this one here just reminds me, it's like so much thicker and sturdier than the parts that we've been getting. So, I'm not trying to bash America. I love America. But what I'm trying to say is we need to step up our game. Look at the detail work they do. Their names and everything. I think their names and everything because they're proud of what they do, and they should be. All right, so now all the bike parts are in epoxy primer. We gotta let this sit and dry. From there, we're gonna scuff it down and do our body work on top of that. I know a lot of shops do things differently. We choose to use epoxy primers direct over metal and then do our body work on top of it. An epoxy primer is a rust inhibitor and an adhesion promoter, so it's the best of the best, and we kind of like doing it that way. To have raw metal sit out there in the elements and collect moisture and debris and all that is not good for adhesion, promotion, and it could cause rust and all that stuff. So this is the way we do it, and hope you like it. You know what's funny? As I'm sanding this fender, I'm like, I would like to shake the guy's hand who made this fender. I have literally done thousands of motorcycle fenders, and I'm sitting here going, this is like to the point where I don't even think you really have to body work it. And I've never said that about a fender, because you'll see when we do the rear fender, why I body work everything. But whoever did this front fender, it's killer. I've never had one to this quality level. Again, I'm shocked. It's beautiful. So kudos to everybody at Rick's. Okay, so I have all the compressor's going, and I'm stuck in the middle of the shop over in the corner by the compressor, so hopefully you can hear me. I'm done sanding. I'm gonna get everything set up, and we're gonna start doing the body work on the fender. And once again, it was only 1 second for you, but I had to wait like 4 hours for this air compressor to shut off so we could do this video. I have the fender. We're gonna start doing the body work on here. I tried to set it up the best I can. It's a little wobbly because I don't like to have it touching the actual bench. Normally we have them up on stands, but because we don't have a camera guy, your camera's there, so we're here. So I'm gonna mix up the body filler. I'm gonna put the first coat on very tight. This way it kind of like grooves into all of our sanding marks that we did. And again, this is a wet on wet epoxy, so if you went and put paint or body filler on there within a few days, they say you're fine. I don't like that. I like everything sanded, as I said before. So I'm gonna put some body filler on here. Now the reason why I applied a body filler over the whole fender, this is kind of like, you know, some people like to try to fill one little ding in. They say they don't want to put a lot of body work on there. We found that they spend a lot more time chasing their tail, trying to fill all these small dents rather than just one shot, fill the whole piece, sand it all off, and be done with it. Okay, so while this is starting to set up, I like to kind of hit the body filler before. So we're just gonna take a piece of sandpaper and just lightly cut this, take down any of our high spots, kind of gives you an inside look of what to expect when you're doing your body work, if there's any low spots that you're gonna have to deal with. All right, now I'm switching to a lighter sandpaper. We're just gonna do a little more sanding. It seems to be the only thing we do over in the body shop is sand, 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 sand. Okay, now I just switch sandpaper again. We just keep doing this. We like to finish our body filler off to between 220 and 320 usually before we put primer on. My goal is to have all of our scratches on here, because each grit sandpaper is coarse and then it gets finer and finer and finer. We want our end result to have between 220 and 320 grit sand these scratches in there before we put our primer on there. At the same time, we want to just start breaking through so you see metal. So now you can start seeing that. We're starting to see a little metal here, a little bit here. As long as our sand scratches are gone and we're starting to see that metal, we're doing good. That means this is going to be really rounded, no sand scratches without a lot of body filler on there. So even though people assume, because we just covered it with body filler, they assume that there's a lot of filler on here. When we're done, it's very, very thin, and it'll be very, very straight or rounded. Okay, so now we just finished this up to 320 grit. As you can see, we're breaking through. It's exactly what I want to be doing right at this point. This way I know there's not a lot of filler on here. It's actually thin in a lot of areas. But if you start really sanding through, you start seeing these high spots, you actually will start going backwards and making dents and waves and stuff like that. And we definitely don't want that. If you want to know the materials we're using on this, we actually are using Barrett epoxy. We are using Evercoat Rage 125 for our body filler. I really like that body filler. I don't have to use any other materials to fill pinholes or any of that stuff in. I think it's a great product. From there, we'll be using our Glazwood primer. We are going to be using PPG base coat because I like PPG base coats that match Harley-Davidson paint jobs. Their coats seem to be a little bit better and easier to gather. And then we will be putting a Glazwood clear coat on here. The difference I find between Glazwood and PPG is a little more clear, but the Glazwood, I really like how it flows out, and I think it's a little bit easier to use. So we will be using that on this bike. So I'm gonna get priming, and I'll show you what it looks like all primered up. Okay, so now all the parts are in high build primer. We're gonna let this sit for 2 days, and then we're gonna sand it down. I'm gonna actually end this first part of the video here. The next part of the video, we'll prepare the actual parts for paint, and then we'll paint them.